Hi everyone, welcome back to Lifey Technologies YouTube channel, and thank you so much for watching and supporting our channel. So this is the second part of our service configuration and HoVPN architecture implementation on Huawei routing devices. And this is just a continuation of our last episode, which is aimed at breaking down the 3-hour video that we had in our live training session into smaller sections so that you are able to easily follow and understand how to do the implementation of HoVPN architecture on Huawei routing devices. So if you haven't watched our last episode, we just focused on data planning. So during the data planning, you need to do some preparations. You need to do some planning. You need to have the IP planning, both for point to point and also for the service IPs. You also need to have the VLAN planning, which VLANs will be used for which services. And again, you also need to have IGP planning, the processes number, and the network entity in case you are using ISIS as the protocol. If you are using OSPF, you need to have the router IDs planned correctly. And then you also need to have the VRF data planning. So you should have the VRF name, which should relate with the service that it's carrying. You need to have the route distinguishers, and then you need to have the route targets. So once you have all this information, you should be ready to now sit down and start preparing the script. It's a best practice that you should first prepare the script and you now do batch configuration. Don't log into the router and start guessing the commands one by one. No, it will waste a lot of time. It will cause errors. So you need to prepare the script in advance. You need to have all the script verified. You need to ensure that you've specified the correct interface, the correct IP address, the correct sysname. And once you've done all this verification, you can now go ahead and start doing the configuration. So in this part, we are just doing the basic IP configuration, the point-to-point IP, and also the host name for the different devices. So when we talk about the host name, you need to provide a host name based on the standard convention that has been set aside by the customer. If they specify that you need to give the site name, the exact location, the site name, the site ID, maybe the device type, the device number, you must provide all these details when you are preparing the configurations. So this is the second part, and just a reminder that if you are watching these sessions and you learning something from them and you are yet to subscribe to our channel, kindly support us by subscribing to our channel. You can also support us by sharing this content with your connections, with your colleagues. Just let them know that there is this content they can use and it will help them in their studies, in their workplaces, because this is a standard solution. This is a standard technology, and almost similar implementation could be done in your network. So this is the same topology that we are using. You have the NPs connecting to SPs, the UPs, you have the BTS in the radio side. You also have the controller side, the VPC, that will be hosting different controllers for different technologies. So this part focuses on how to configure the system and IP address on the UPE, SPE, and NPE. So we are just doing basic IP configuration in our MPLS backbone. Remember, the MPLS backbone will be running from the UPE to the NPE. That will be our MPLS backbone. And we can have like the UPEs can be the provider edge, the SPE can be provider routers, the NPs are also provider edge routers. So you need to do proper configurations to ensure that these MPLS backbone should be able to carry these different technologies, the radio access technologies, 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G, or even 6G if there is that growth in the future. So for this part, we are focusing on how to do basic configurations, the host name and IP addresses. I've already mentioned that the host name, you need to provide the correct naming standard. You must follow the correct naming standard that has been set up by the company. They will always have a conventional way of naming devices. If it's a CSG, if it's an RSG, if it's ASG, you need to provide the correct name so that it's easy. Even when you are logging into the device, it's very easy to identify this device. It's located in this location. This device is of which type and even which vendor. So it's very easy. So for the first part, we are starting with the NPE. So the NPE, we need to configure the sysname. So the sysname for the NP will be NP01. So the other NP will be NP02. You can see here, correct, that we state it as NP02. And then we are doing the interface configuration. So for the interface configuration, remember I've mentioned that you need to provide the correct interface. For this one, it's interface gig 0/0/0. Another thing that you need to provide is also the description. So you should always provide correct description, especially in the live network. Always provide the correct description of the interfaces. Where is it connecting to? What is the remote device? Those are the type of description that you should give. The remote device and the remote port. So that it's very easy to tell this port is connecting to this remote device. This port is connecting to this remote port. So you should always provide correct descriptions. So we have interface gig 00. You can see that for us, this interface gig 00 is connecting to NP2. And then we have gig 002 that is connecting to SPE1. So you should give such kind of description just to make it clear and easy to identify where these connections are going to. So once you've done that, you also need to configure the other interface. And another key thing is you need to provide the loopback. So you can see here that we have the loopback. The loopback IP will be 1.1.1.1. They are always configured as /32. This loopback will be playing some important role. For example, the router ID for BGP configuration, the MPLS LSR ID. And if you have OSPF, can also be the router ID for that OSPF process. And many other. If you are generating the network entity, we are generating it from loopback 0. So you need to provide all these different configuration, the different IP address and the correct IP address that you plan to configure. So from here, now I will copy this. So we are configuring two ports. We have port 00 and port 002. So I'll go ahead and copy these configurations. First, we need to copy, remember this one, I don't have to configure this. We are just configuring two ports. So this is the first port. And this first port, I need to configure on NP02. So this is a simulator, so you need to undo terminal monitor so that you don't get any form of debugging messages. Then I'll paste. Then I'll configure the remaining interfaces. So these are the two remaining interfaces. So you just configure the interface. You need to provide the correct mask. So we've configured NP01, display IP interface brief. We should be able to see the IP addresses that have been configured. You can see 10.250 10.4 should be on gig 002, and then 10.250.10.16 is on gig 00. And then you can see the loopback IP. So this one verify that we've configured the correct IP address for the NP01. And then we'll move ahead and do the configuration for NPE2. So NPE2 also has two connections, gig 00 and gig 002. And then we need to provide the correct loopback IP 1.1.1. This is the mask. You can see that we are using /31, which translates to 255.255.255.254 for the point-to-point configuration. And then we are using /32 for the loopback IPs. So I'll copy this, go to NP2, and then I display IP interface brief. You can see the interfaces, loopback 0, the point-to-point IPs, the physical status is up, the protocol status is up. You can see the IP address and the mask that has been configured for these interfaces. So we can quickly do the configuration for SPE2. So SPE2, you can see SPE01, you have the sysname, the interface IPs. So the interface IP configuration, this is very straightforward, very easy to understand. You just need to ensure that you configure the correct IP address and the correct mask for the different interfaces that you are configuring on these different devices. So this is SP1. I need to be on SP1. I will undo terminal monitor, then paste. If I display IP interface brief, we are able to see. Let me add the brief command. You will see the different IP addresses that have been configured. The status is up and up for the physical and the protocol status. So on SP2, we need to do similar configurations. These are the configurations for the different interfaces. I'll go ahead and undo terminal monitor. Then we need to be in the system view. So remember, there are different views on Huawei. For example, in this view, this is the user view. I'm not able to do any configurations on the user view. So for me to be able to do any configurations, I need to be in the system view. Under system view, you also need to be in the correct configuration. For example, if I want to configure an interface, I need to be in the interface configuration view. If I want to configure a protocol like OSPF, I need to be in the correct OSPF configuration view. So you need to pay attention to such details. So these are the interface IP configuration. If I display IP interface brief, you see the interfaces and their parameters, the correct IP address, the correct mask, and the status. You can also check a specific interface. If I do interface gig 0/0/0, you can see the different parameters, the internet address, the current state, line protocol current state, the physical state, the MTU, and the last physical uptime, the last physical downtime. You can see all these different parameters. And then finally, we need to configure the UPEs. So the UPEs, we only have two interfaces. So I will undo terminal monitor. Display IP interface brief to verify. You see the interface parameters, and finally on UP2, I need to configure these parameters. Just remember to add the description. If it's an live network, you need to provide the correct description for the interfaces. Display IP interface brief. You can see the interface configurations. So one thing, you can try to always verify the connectivity. You can ping the point to point. So for example, if I'm on UP2, I can try to ping 10.250.10.10. Remember, we are 11, so we can ping to .10. This is 8, so I can ping .8. Should be able to .9 should be a local IP. I should be able to, and also if I try to ping the loopback IP, I should be able to ping the local IP. But given that we haven't done any protocol, any IGP protocol, if you try to ping any other loopback IP, you should not be able to ping them, because remember, we don't have any routing established between the different nodes. You can only ping the point-to-point IPs or the local IP that have been configured on the device. So these are the basic configuration that you need to make for the part 2. You need to configure the sysname, the host name, and the IP interfaces, both the back-to-back connection between different routers and the loopback IP, which will be used for different functionalities. I've mentioned it will be used as the LSR ID, it should be used as the BGP router ID, it will be used as the network entity. When we are generating the network entity, we should also use the loopback IP so that we ensure it's unique. So I hope you've understood the basic configurations. I hope it's clear. I hope you've learned something. And we'll be moving to the third part. So the third part will be focusing on the IGP configurations. Now we have the physical setup. We have configured the point-to-point. How do we achieve some kind of dynamic routing between the different nodes? So that will be the third part that we'll be talking about in our next session. Thank you so much again. And just a reminder that if you haven't clicked that subscribe button, please support us by subscribing to our channel, and also support further by sharing this content with your colleagues, your connections on LinkedIn, or even at your workplace. We appreciate when you share the content with your connections. Thank you so much, and see you in the next episode. Bye.